There we go. Okay, so we have the first poll question up. Do you know the drivers for open data in your country? Please go ahead and use your iPad in front of you for the answers. Oh, we've got a really mixed result here. It's pretty evenly split between yes and no, and a good chunk on I don't know. So looks that I'm not sure if that's because countries aren't clearly articulating that well enough. That might be an interesting question to dive a little bit deeper into on the next survey that you guys do. Is there a second question, Ross? All right, here's your next question. Have you seen any innovative use or reuse of open data? Again, please use your iPad. I think particularly yesterday we heard a lot of really good examples of innovative use of data coming from the other countries. So yeah, we've got a nice polling result there. So thank you. I think that was the only, those were the only two. Okay, great. So we're going to go ahead and get started. This panel is on open government solutions, and so we heard particularly yesterday a variety of ways in which governments are presenting data online, and certainly it's not an easy undertaking to get the capabilities stood up, both from the hiring side as well as the infrastructure side. So we're going to hear from our panel this morning some of the solutions that are out there. And we're going to start with Mr. Charles Phillips from Dell. Thank you.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here today, and specifically I want to thank the Emirates Identity Authority and the United Nations for inviting me to speak today. I have to make a note. I've been listening to the presentations for a day and a half, and I must truly say all the speakers, you guys are experts in your field and thought leaders, and it's great to see that you know, the initiatives that are happening, and it's a wonderful thing. My presentation today, I'm going to focus on basically the business intelligence landscape, what we see from an evolutionary perspective, some of the best practices that we use, and looking at how to basically manage and install a BI infrastructure to enable it. Now, this presentation is, say, business-oriented. However, you can transform business to government. It could be interchangeable for this area. So basically, what is business intelligence when we look at it? So it's information, knowledge, and insights to measure and predict and affect business outcomes. So in order to do that, if we look at the business capabilities on the left side of the slide, before we talk about measure, we need to have goals, right? We need to define a vision, specific goals that we want to accomplish for the business. Now, from a business perspective, that could be increasing market share, revenue, providing better services to our customers, government, empowering our citizens, and so on and so forth. However, you have to have a vision. Once we have the vision, we can, collecting data, we can use that to generate knowledge and insights about the business and measure that so we can take appropriate action for it. So there are certain tools that we use to understand it, the health of the businesses, the processes, and take factual-based decisions based on that. And so once we have that for the business side, now what are the solutions to enable those business strategies? The first is the strategy, right? People, process, and technology. Today, we've had presentations where we discussed people. A lot of times, the culture has to change. Traditionally, people are focused on their specific task in the organization, And collaborating with other units and other organizations is probably may or may not be part of their culture. So that needs to change. And it's very important to implement a change management process, an ongoing change management process to either change the culture, enable, and provide the right incentives for people to collaborate and work together and share information. Process, we had the discussions today from the panel. Very important. We have to align the business processes to the goal of the business. So the way if we have new business goals, so therefore the processes need to support those goals. You cannot have antiquated processes, and so you have a disconnect there. So it's important to get the processes together. Now, once we have that, the technology is the base infrastructure to enable both the processes and the business objectives. With that, you have different types of data. You have your traditional data, structured data, which you're probably used to. That's the transactional, tabular data. We have the other types of data we call big data. That's data that is not structured. It's high value, and so there are strategies for handling and managing that as well. And there are tools for reporting, for analytical reporting, statistical visualization, measure your PKIs, key performance indicators, and also advanced analytics as we go through the whole process to not only look in the rearview mirror, but to give you more insights into your business. So the evolving landscape, so we really see the major pillars. So you have an effective data warehouse. What that means is you have your transactional systems that run your business. You take that information needs to be transformed, gathered, captured, transformed into a central repository that we call an enterprise data warehouse. And then that data, basically, there's a lot of processes that go into that with integration. The holy grail is to get a single version of the truth. I work a lot in business, and that is not existent in a lot of enterprises. And it's easy. It's an easy statement to say, however, very difficult to accomplish. When we look at the big data is the high volume, transaction logs, monitoring people's clicks, what sites they go to, video cameras on streets, all different types of data. And that data is not structured. It's high volume, high frequency, and there's a different strategy for managing that as well, and different tools, because it does not lend itself to your traditional SQL-based tools or relational database. So there's a whole different technology and process for managing that data. Also, as we evolve to it, you have what we call advanced analytics. You have your data, your traditional reporting. Now, advanced analytics wraps the data in creating web services where you have algorithms that perform complicated mathematical routines, basically to provide more insight and predictive insight into your business. And of course, operationalizing it, not only giving you insight, but prescriptive, and you're really not just predicting business outcome, but you're affecting business outcome, which is very important. And we'll talk about some examples there as well. So if you look at the value chain, you have your enterprise data warehouse starting on the left, your report analysis. Most organizations, most enterprises are at that level. And getting the information, your people, your process, your technology, getting your strategies for master data management, how do you reconcile different data sources, the integration of data, getting your metadata in place. Once you present the information that it's clean, data integrity there, confidence in the information, so everyone can make decisions on accurate information and factual-based information, right? So at this point, you're really doing a lot of query reporting, looking in the rearview mirror, looking at what happened in the past and making decisions based on that. As we evolve, we go forward, we're looking at not just what happened, looking at the rearview mirror, we're looking at what will happen. Now we're starting to get more advanced. We have, for instance, in financial services, you have a lot of quantitative analysts, and they take the data and they write these complicated algorithms where they can predict market trends up, down, and do a lot of volume trading and make a lot of money on that. And these folks are worth gold. So you start wrapping around with advanced analytics. Now, the Holy Grail is saying not only predicting what will happen, but what should happen, and you can affect that. So with big data, you have the mashup between your traditional analytics data, and you mash it up with big data, meaning your unstructured data, which has a lot of valuable information about trends, information. And this will give you basically what I would call the Holy Grail, where you can actually predict, not only predict, but affect business outcome or governmental outcome and what you want to accomplish. So from our perspective, and this is from an implementation perspective, the first step is what we call BI monetization. You really have to do an assessment of where you're at today. Looking at getting your partners, your stakeholders and your business partners to align. Looking at the right technology, the right platform, from storage to infrastructure. You talk about cloud computing. Where do you want to store that information? Because you're really talking about, when you're looking at big data, terabytes, petabytes, zettabytes of information, so it's a different storage strategy. So it's important to have that and do an assessment of your current state and where you want to be. So your enterprise, then the second stage, your enterprise data warehouse, there's a lot of work that in processes that happens in that area. Of course, gathering, validating data, transforming it, what we call ETL processes, extracting it, transferring and loading the data, cleaning it, creating that one unified view of the data where everyone believes in it and you could trust in it. And then it's an ongoing process that has to happen. Now, of course, the big data, high volume, that's another, for instance, you would not store your big data in your tier 1 storage. It's alternate storage, it's high volume, you want to keep that. However, you have different tools like Hadoop, and I'll talk a little bit about that you can program, access the information, query it, and store it as well, because a lot of data is getting information quickly, and merging it with your traditional structured data to make decisions there. And when we think about enterprise analytics, you're really predicting business performance and you're affecting the change. And so with high degree of certainty, you know exactly what's going to happen and you're becoming very prescriptive as far as what you're doing. All right. So advanced analytics, you're discovering, now you're at the right end of the spectrum, you're doing discovery, you're communicating patterns in data, you're quantifying business performance, and you're actually putting making decisions in place to affect business performance there. And this is a comment from IDC, looking at the market and what the major focus, where you have a lot of major focus on big data, because it's very powerful. It provides not just this transactional, fact-based information, but a lot of contextual information about the market and the audience and your customers and what you're trying to accomplish. So the evolution and mashing it up, we talked about it. You have to have, obviously, if you look at the different layers, your enterprise data governance, master data management strategy, ongoing. The different tools that you're going to use for your BI analytics presentation layer, whether it's spatial, PKIs, geo presentation. So you have your traditional systems, and on the other side you have your big data system, your traditional systems. You have different operational data stores, whether it's Oracle, SQL, Microsoft, whatever, different tools there and technologies. The big data systems, you got tools such as Hadoop, developed by Google initially, and so for programming it and querying the information and also storing it. So you have these different things, and of course the mashup and the integration between it. ETL, the data structures, and this new paradigm shift provide a new level of capability as far as information and knowledge and being able to take actionable decisions. Okay, so basically, when we're looking at the evolution as you go from your historical norm and go up the value chain, it's not just enough to predict information, as we talked about. You want to influence the outcome and the objective, or if you're talking about government, you literally can influence the behavior of your citizens and the outcome and what you do want them to expect. And we'll talk about that as well. And in a subtle way, you can do that. And they'll love it. So again, going through that, we want to focus on eventually want to get to the new paradigm where we're actually predicting information. And we can give you some information. I'll give you some examples as far as that's concerned. And, it makes you more strategic, more competent, and obviously increase the value that you're providing to your stakeholdership, if that's your citizens or your business or your customers, and so on. Okay. So, and the example, it's not about, predicting the traffic flow, you're actually controlling it. So that's a lot of power that you kind of gain there. So this is some case studies that Adele that we've done for different companies. Credit card usage, one of the major financial institutions wanted to have better ways to prevent fraud. So we looked at their disparate systems. They had customer relationship management systems, what we call CRM, different online transaction processing systems, OLTPs, and we were able to capture it, consolidate it across their business units, get that so we can have and give better insights into potential fraud activities with a lot of algorithm and mathematical figures, and going out, looking at all the big data that's occurring, mashing it up, and providing that insight to the customers. Now, a personal example from that, talking about the banks, is in April in the U.S. you have to file, your tax return, your tax form. So I have this thing. I wait till the last minute all the time. So I went to this application called TurboTax. Downloaded it. Started inputting my information. All I had to do was put in my employee ID information and basically all my bank account information. It went out, got all my bank stuff, which is kind of scary, got all my income, and basically created my income taxes for me, right? And not only did that, it submitted it online. So I felt really kind of, I didn't have any value to add there, but it did it. And I knew it was accurate, and if they ever come back at me, I'll just blame TurboTax, right? So, but that's an example of really government and business collaborating together, providing, in the back end, there's a lot of work that goes into that, right? So somebody had to create web services and wrap it around and say, okay, give me customers' information, and then crawl all the different banks, get authorization, making sure that, it's the right person, bringing that information back, all the stock information, what have you, going to my employer ID, and going to their, I guess, personnel database, getting all my information there, and mashing it up, putting it back, and putting it in the application, and making sure that all that is secure and it's valid. So that's one example of using that. Another case study, real quick, that we've done, student retention rate. All right, so increasing it by 1%. So we wanted to make, university wanted to do that. We're able to get a lot of data again, and what we did is we were able to present that information to the students, and actually change their behavior, and we were able to increase the retention rate of students for that. Now, looking at different governments. Technically, using big data, if, for instance, the government said, well, I want to increase the number of engineers in my population, so you can go at an early age, look at, with big data, target specific kids with the IQ and the propensity to be engineers. And that based on what they're browsing, what they're looking at on the internet, and what they're doing, and have a specific program for them. It could be very subtle, suggest programs in an educational path, so you can predict with a number of certainty that these folks will be engineers. And that's one way you're really affecting the outcome versus giving up to chance that these people might want to be engineers or doctors or whatever the global plan is for achieving that. Okay. Healthcare. Again, that's a big aspect, both for government and the wellness of the population and folks. So readmission rates and for retreatment, we're able to look at statistical analysis and basically making sure that customers, when they leave, they don't get readmitted, lowering overall hospital costs and those aspects. Now, just sitting yesterday, looking at some of the different e-government initiatives and smart initiatives, one application for healthcare could be, you have all these wearable devices, right? So potentially, and could be done today, These wearable devices monitor your critical signs, like, whether your heart rate, blood pressure, all these things. So theoretically or practically, you can have a device where if someone exhibits the signs of having a heart attack or stroke, we all know these things, the first minutes are life-saving, right? The quicker you can get, the better. So that device could basically identify proactively that the life signs are not regular, go to a database, check the person's medical records. I know we have privacy issues in the audience, people, but really check your medical records, match that up, look at your lifestyle, whether you're a healthy person or you've been eating McDonald's or what have you, and say, okay, you know what, I can predict that you're going to have a heart attack or stroke within 30 minutes. So having done that, you can contact the hospital and have an ambulance, and you know where the person is through GPS, come and pick up the person and provide life-saving treatment or prevent it from happening, right? So that's a practical application that you can do today with that. And that's some of the benefit. Obviously, though you lower your healthcare costs, that's not a burden to society and government, and the person is healthier. Now, from a prescriptive changing behavior, that same individual, you're tracking them, you know where they eat, what restaurants, and you probably know what they're eating if they go there. You know if they're exercising, if they belong to a health club, or they have an active lifestyle or don't. So you can pretty much determine how long that person is going to live, right? If they're a heavy smoker and they buy, So given that, you can prescribe a healthy lifestyle for the person, so when they go on the internet, they're browsing, you give them a message on healthy food, right? Or give them saying, okay, join this gym. So you could really improve the person's lifestyle. So what you're doing, you're affecting the outcome, and you're providing a service to the individual, and it's more, and it's better, and everyone wins. So these are some examples that you can do today with the technology that's available with that. So in closing, you'll show it there. Just I want to say, going back, as you have different initiatives, and it seems to me you're far ahead and you're forward thinking in these aspects. It's good to align with the right business partners, the stakeholders, the different tools to have a comprehensive plan and strategy together as you go forward in implementing your open data, open government, when you decide what data you want to share and so on and so forth. Okay, thank you. So.
Thank you, Charles. So next we're going to hear from Sarah Voisin from Microsoft.
Excuse me. Okay.
Thank you. Assalamu alaikum. Oh, maybe I should stay near the mic. Assalamu alaikum. Today I've been invited to talk about open data, so I will not talk about big data and the other kind of data you can have in the government, but I will specifically focus just on the open data. And when you look at the experiences around the world, you can find a number of interesting experiences around open data, and I think it's been covered already by a number of speakers, so I'm not going to spend too much time on that. But you see that all over the world, in every continent, and the World Economic Forum is telling us you can make more effective decisions by having more data, which is available for everyone to be able to be informed about how to make decisions. You can have innovations, and we saw during the previous question that not everyone was convinced that there could be innovations, and I'll talk a little bit about that. And also the idea is that basically it's about publishing, making public information which is already public and which is used by the government and produced by the government. And I want to come back to the gentleman's very smart question about the privacy. In Europe, there is a privacy group called the Article 29 Working Party, or WP29. And they published recently that basically there is no method of making the data anonymous that really works. Okay? So depending on the case you have in hands, you need to look at the data you have and what kind of inference people can do with the data. And I'll give you a simple example. If you start publishing information about healthcare, and then you publish information about where that person, what kind of car that person is driving, and then how many children they have, and so on, suddenly you realize that if you are from a small city, you came down to a couple of persons, you know? So it's important that every time you publish any data, it's not because the set of data you're publishing doesn't contain any names, that it's not identifying people. So you need to be smart about how you're going to make sure that when you have all the data sets, you cannot go across all that, because not only the culture, but also I think it's a requirement that people can be left alone and have their own privacy while still evolving the society in general. So, what can open data do for us? It can transform public data into life-saving information. For instance, in New York City, when there was the Hurricane Sandy coming, it was easy to identify the populations who would be impacted by having open data about where they would be located and how they could find shelters. So this is something that can be useful. You can also have economic prosperity because you see the kind of visualization that you can have, and you can study neighborhoods and where you can give more incentives and more funds to these neighborhoods because the schools are not succeeding as much. Maybe the healthcare system, you will find that people will start to realize that this hospital has more issues with patients. So maybe there is something that needs to be done regarding the professionals working there, maybe regarding the infrastructure, but then you get information which might be interesting. You get also applications, and UAE is leading the world in terms of mobile government. When you see the initiative that we have that will be finished by May 2015, well, you will have all the government services available from a smartphone or a tablet, and this is just magic. And having all the open data available can make applications which are richer than the one that we have today. Because today, every government entity publishes their own application. But when you look at the strategy of the country, basically the idea is to have an ecosystem of students, companies publishing new application. And if I'm changing my apartment, basically I need to contact Du or Etisalat to tell them I'm moving, I'm living in Dubai, so I need to call Diwa. If you're in Abu Dhabi, you call Adwa. But basically there are a number of organizations that I need to contact. And for me, a useful application is a resident or citizen-centric application. And this is what you can enable by having a number of data available, but not only data, APIs. You need to be able to contact some government services directly in order to make that possible. And you see here an example of a contest that was organized to get people do and develop applications. And as we know that usually people are interested into building applications, but if you give them incentives, then they will invest a lot of time and efforts to compete and get to the point. This is a report from August 2013 from the European Public Sector Information Platform about open data. And at the time, UAE was considered a beginner. And we know the big aspiration of UAE, and this is not the kind of ranking that we deserve. So I'm very glad that this conference was set up, because basically I'm sure that we will be going up and become part of the trendsetters in the future. So, talking about the solutions that we have, I work for Microsoft, and at Microsoft we have this public cloud service which we call Microsoft Azure, which is basically a platform where you can come and run any kind of workloads that you would like, store any kind of data that you would like, and it's being used heavily for open data. And we have a number of reasons why people are using that. First of all, it's the cost efficiency, because public cloud is on a scale which is really large, and basically because there's no sensitive data that you're going to publish, you don't really care about storing that outside of UAE or GCC. You get also developer and citizen access for solutions. So that means once the data is there are a number of APIs that you can use easily in order to develop more sophisticated applications. Also, it's widely accessible. You don't have to worry about that. It's replicated wherever you want it. And you don't need to invest into having an infrastructure that you need to maintain and update and all that. So basically saving on the investment and capital and just doing the operation expenses. So we have a number of solutions which comes with every data, analytics, business intelligence. These solutions apply to open data also. I would encourage you to look at things such as Power BI. This is tools for visualization of data, which is just amazing. Let's say you want to compare what's the average income of a woman in UAE based on nationality, number of years, level of diplomas, university, and so on. You can do that in just a few clicks, and you can compare this data. So if you have an intuition about something that is happening, given that you get the data, with these tools you can quickly visualize what's happening and get confirmation about your intuition. There are two basic big solutions being used in open data world today. One is called Socrata, and it comes with a open data portal. Basically, every government going into open data has a data.gov.ae, for instance, where it's very easy to go and find everything that is available. That doesn't mean that every data set is hosted into that portal, but that means that portal is the one touch point where you want to find whatever has been published. They also have a solution called GovStat, where basically you can visualize, and you see some of the visualization on the side. This is like one of the previous presenters said the dry Excel sheet. So this is the dry Excel sheet, but you can transform that into dashboards, into graphics represented on maps, and make the data speak. And the beauty of this solution is that not only you're publishing the data set on a website, for instance, but it comes into a number of formats which are standard formats. You have APIs to query those data, and you get directly the tools to manipulate and visualize the data. So if you go, for instance, to data.gov.ka for Kenya, you will find the Socrata solution being used, and you can look at their data and just visualize immediately. So as a citizen, I don't have to be a professional of managing the Excel and BI tools. I just go there and I can just visualize the data immediately without having to go through the raw data. The second solution, which is heavily used, is the open source software solution called Secam from the Open Knowledge Foundation. And it's basically running on Linux, Ubuntu, and we can run this solution directly on Microsoft Azure. It's been provisioned automatically, so if you want to run it, there is an image there for you to run. And we have a subsidiary of Microsoft, which is called MS OpenTech, which works exclusively on open source, and they are basically porting these applications to the public cloud of Microsoft Azure. And this solution has been used by the government of UK for their own website, integrated with Drupal, which is also an open source solution, directly into Windows Azure. So these are the two big solutions that you will find most of the time, and obviously you can check them to see what's available. There is another example of giving data. This is the BSmart business intelligence solution for the city of Barcelona. Basically, they publish KPIs. So basically, we know that the way UAE is managed, from the Prime Minister office and the President and the different ministers, is that there are objectives with specific numbers that need to be achieved, and there are key performance indicators that need to be achieved. So performance management solutions exist in UAE and are also a reference in the world. But these KPIs, why not publish them? Maybe after 2 or 3 years, not immediately, because maybe if we're struggling on a KPI, we don't want to share that for different reasons. But maybe we can show the evolution of things and show the progress and just make everyone follow this approach. This Love Clean Streets is an example of a mobile gov application where basically data is produced by the citizen and being offered publicly for people to know what's happening. So typically it was launched in London initially, before the Olympic Games, and they wanted to get rid of anything that would be something that the visitors would not like. So for instance, if you have graffitis on a wall, or you have people who put garbage on the curbside, you can just as a citizen come there, take a picture, say there is something that doesn't seem to be to the standard of a clean London, it's sent automatically to the government employees, and then they can just go there without having to have a separate ticket or someone calling them for doing that. And then you can decide or not to share this information, to show the number of cleanings that you've been doing, which neighborhoods are having issues with graffitis and all that. Eye on Earth is an initiative that was launched by European Union and which Abu Dhabi and Emirate embraced, which is about showing information about the environment data. So typically in Abu Dhabi, the goal is to have the best beaches of the world. So the quality of the water, the quality of the cleanliness, how clean the beaches are, and so on. And this is typical information that can be public data. And you can think about the same with air quality, pollution. For instance, in big cities like Abu Dhabi and Dubai, you probably have pollution linked to the traffic of cars, but you want to be explaining to people, okay, if you live on the Sheikh Zayed Road, then yeah, you might have issues at the traffic, at the peak of traffic, but if you live like 1 kilometer from there, there's no issue, so you can be relaxed about your children and your own health. We have a number of applications which have been developed for tablets. I'm not going to describe them. You will have the presentation if you want to look at that. But basically making also sure that the data is simple to use and on modern devices is something that can make a difference. Because if I give you raw data and you have to analyze everything in a very complex way, it's not going to work efficiently. An example of Italy. Basically, they did a contest for creating new applications. They made sure also that basically they are a user of a Socrata solution that I mentioned. So they're publishing information for visitors like where can I find museums, where can I find information about energy savings for buildings and all that. City of Barcelona already mentioned, they are going big as a smart city, and we know that they are today one of the leaders in smart cities, but we know we have initiatives in UAE to catch up and go further than this. Love Clean Street I already mentioned. So just to summarize what I said, basically open data is an interesting opportunity. There are some challenges regarding privacy, and also every time you publish more data to the citizen and residents, they might come with arguments to you. So you need also to take that into consideration. Do you want to have to handle some objections that you didn't want to have at the beginning? But in order to move forward, you need to have a clear strategy. And I think what is required today, part of the strategy, is to update the policy on open data so that every government entity knows exactly what they have to do, how they should do things, because it's not enough to say it's public data. What do you mean by public data? Is it anonymous data? Is it something that is already available through another mean? You need to define that. And you need to define a number of standards, because if I publish an Excel worksheet, maybe I'm satisfied I published the data, but no one is going to really enjoy using it. So maybe I need something more sophisticated, or I need at least something more efficient than that. Then when it comes to solution, again, we have this public cloud called Microsoft Azure. You need to have a portal where everyone can go and find things. You need a way to publish. Every government entity needs to have a simple way to publish the data. It should not be something that is adding on top of what they do. Visualization tools are important, and then you can expect to have applications which will leverage all this information that could be just basic information. So like, where do I find an hospital? Where do I find a police station? And with that, I thank you for your attention. Thank you.